Good evening, ball watchers. Welcome back to another episode. You will just have me today. Jake is, we're kind of taking a little flip flop here for him when he did the preview for this game. And I get the fun side of doing a recap for a disgusting game against Cincinnati last night. I will say, I don't really know what to really think about this. I know we'll talk about highlights, lowlights, player ratings, predictions, Grahammers. None of it was good. And I will say, though, the one thing that I do want to talk about first is the starting 11. I think there was a lot going different on this, and it was really tough. And I'm going to make sure real quick that this stream is actually going. Yeah, we're live. Maybe not. Yeah. So I will say the one thing I want to talk about first is that starting 11 with Hoffman brothers as well. Hoffman brothers starting 11. You have Berkey, Dewyer, Nilsson, Hebert, Watts, Celio, Kojima, Blum, AZ, Klaus, and Dinneran. We knew this was going to be one of those rotated games with having this is now our third game in what you can call 8 days. And I did not know for sure how it was really going to shake out. And this is actually about as rotated as Jake and I had thought. I know it wasn't exactly what we were predicting, but we knew that there was going to be a lot of different people going on in this. And honestly, I think it was deserving as well that we needed that. And it was good to see two things real quick. It was good to see Kojima get his first start in the MLS. Klaus is still staying up top with Sam, but I don't really know. That's what we'll hop right into this. And Kevin, thank you for letting me know that we're live. But Tyler Talley says, what is going on with Klaus? It doesn't seem in the box, keeps rolling out to the wings, dropping back too. I don't get it. And so I will say, Tyler, the first thing I want to touch on that is the fact that when you're a striker and you're not having a season that you're kind of expecting, he's getting out of the box to go try to find the ball. And that's honestly not his position. And I think that is a problem that needs to be addressed as well. If you're going to be our striker, you need to be up top. You're not falling in to play like where a Ostrak or a Leuven is, because then we can't stretch the field. And I understand in a game like this, he could come back a little bit more and let Sam be that deeper threat, but it's still not helpful for him to come back all the way into our defensive third almost to try to get the ball. That's not his game, and that's not something that he should be doing. But I digress on the starting 11 and all of that first. But I already mentioned the Hoffman brothers as well. I want to give a big shout out to Jim B, who came out to Danny's house and helped hook her up with everything that she needed for the spring, making sure that the AC is working correctly. If you have not called the Hoffman brothers, do it now. It's already getting warmer. It's only going to get worse. We all know the St. Louis weather. Call Hoffman brothers. You can call them at 314-664-3011 or go to hoffmanbros.com. And getting into the game itself, I will say there was not a whole lot going on in the first half of this game. And a lot of the highlights that I will speak about, unfortunately, are Berkey saves. And that is definitely 100% going to be both Jake and I's sole juice player of the match. But the first, 3 minutes in, we have a highlight. Sam Dinneran did his trademark run. I think it was a long ball from Berkey. He did a great first touch to beat the defender. Just runs right by him, but then I will say doesn't even look up, and doesn't see Klaus streaking down there. And I'm fine with Sam hitting this shot, but he doesn't even get it on net. And I think that's a problem with Sam in itself. It was very Sam-esque. I would have liked to see Sam actually do a little bit more in this game, not only from an offensive perspective, but also getting on the ball more. So I believe Sam, if I pull it up real quick, he only had 41 touches, and that was his only shot of the game in the third minute. And that is not something that we can have from a big striker like Sam. I think it's tough, right? I think he's going to start getting back into the kind of feel of things as he's back into the starting 11 after being away with everything that happened there. But having that be your only shot, for not even like only shot on target, it wasn't even on target, only shot of the game in the third minute was not good. And then unfortunately, we already go down early in the 26th minute. Very easy goal for them. It was Celio, very lazy defending on Acosta. When you see this, you're watching Celio, you're like, all right, Celio's got quick feet. He can work with Acosta. For some reason, he does a little hop right when he gets to Acosta, and his feet are in concrete. And I don't know what he was doing there. Acosta didn't even really go down. Celio just grabbed him because he knew he was beat. You cannot do that in the box. I would rather have Mr. Roman Berkey try to make a save from a bad angle that Acosta would have been shooting at, as opposed to a PK, which Berkey has now had somewhere pushing 30, if anybody knows this for sure, that he has not saved PKs. And then I will say, then we have another low light in the 30th minute. Atrocious, absolutely horrible marking by Akil Watts on a corner kick. He doesn't know where his man is whatsoever. And then this guy, so his man fades to the backside, puts a header that's like very light on net. Like it would be very easy for Berkey to save. However, right in front of Berkey was, I think it was Duyer's man, and Duyer was not marking tight enough whatsoever. And so it's almost falling to this, and Berkey has to react to if in case this guy gets a touch on it, and he doesn't touch it, and Berkey makes a great push save out to the wide. And that's something that you will hear a lot in the rest of this game when we talk about highlights. I'll say another low light for the first half is poor marking, this time again on Duyer. After a corner gets kind of half cleared out, they send it back in with like a really weak side volley. But Duyer has no clue where Venezuela is, sneaks in behind for a 1v1, and Berkey would have had him come up and make a huge save, which he did all night. But luckily, it was skied over the top. So that is literally all I have to talk about in the first half. I think the second half, and I wish I would have asked Jake what his bet was going to be sooner, so I could have put more on the second half being the most goals scored, because that was by far and away the busier of the halves in this game. So as we're getting into the second half, we have halftime subs for Parker and Ostrak coming on for Duyer and Kajima. That's one of those where it's like, all right, we're only down 1-0. Like, we could actually still kind of make something out of this. Let's go and put some of our mainstays back in there. So unfortunately, didn't work whatsoever. They scored in the 49th minute. Awful man marking leads to Kubo being found free in the box with no one marking him, and he just absolutely powers one into the net. I would say if you look at this and you go back and look at the replay, Tim Parker does a good job in setting the line to make sure that no one is going to be getting it behind, and if anything, we can maybe have somebody offsides. However, when the ball is played, it was 10 yards of space, and when it gets played through, Tim looks back like he expects Roman Berkey to come pick the ball up, and there was nowhere in sight for this, and just an absolute rip of a shot by Kubo as well. Nothing that Roman could do from a point-blank range. In the 52nd minute, City has a great fast break that leads to a chance for AZ, but he's really missing the pace to challenge the goal, the keeper Calentino, but he does make him make a save. That's our first shot on net in the 52nd minute, and I will say, if you look at it, it's an AZ shot. I would say you could maybe count that for maybe a 10th of shot on net. Everything, for whatever reason, I love AZ. I think he does a great job getting in positions and getting others in positions to have great scoring opportunities. But when that man tries to rip a shot, it's like someone is trying to pass a ball to like their third grader. It is the slowest thing that could happen and the easiest saves for every keeper. And it's extremely frustrating, and I will say, but congrats to AZ for finally us getting our first shot on goal in the 52nd minute. We only had 3 total. In the 54th minute, we got our goal. Not a shot on net from us, but thank you, Matt Miazga, a guy that I've grown up playing against a decent amount, and someone that I absolutely despise if you go back and look at how he has treated the fans last season as well. The dude is quite annoying, and I think there's a couple different names that can go there, but I was pretty happy to see that he did this. So for anybody that didn't see it, the keeper has the ball. Matt Miazga is the center back. It is a kind of a difficult spot for Miazga. If you're a center back, he's probably 25 yards out from his own net. His back is, so he has no clue who's behind him or what. Keeper plays the ball up to his feet as Sam is doing kind of a light press. And Miazga, I don't know if he stutters, if he should have played the ball out to the left back that was wide open. And that's what I think the keeper thought he was doing, bounce it up and then play it wide. However, he tries to play it back to the keeper and misses him by a good 8 yards, puts it right into the back of his net. And that was the best chance that I would say that we had on net, obviously, all night. There is a chance later on that we'll talk about as well with AZ, but can't even get it on net. And honestly, I have a note in here that I actually thought if he was a defender, it would have been a great clearance because it was not a good shot and it was a diving header. But before we get there, we had subs in the 60th minute, again, where it's like, hey, we're still in this game. We're only down 2-1. It's 60 minutes in. We still have 30 to go. We bring on Indy and Durkin for Celio and Blum. I think that one is obviously, I think Celio's been playing a ton of minutes, and it just wasn't there for him last night. And he already had the yellow from the PK as well. And then you have Blum that I think is still kind of getting into the feel of things. It's a similar situation to what we had for Sam. So I was not surprised to see those subs. And I do like that Carnell was trying to do a little bit, even more rotation, not just with the starting 11. It's not like, hey, let's throw a team out there with Akio Watts and Kajima and think that we're going to go get points from Cincinnati. But I do like to see that we actually were making additional subs and bringing some of the mainstays back in. 62nd minute, I'll say it again, a huge diving save from Roman Berkey on Luka. It was a left-footed shot, so probably around the PK spot or so. And it did have a little bit more pace than an AZ shot, but it was still a great get low, get down quick, make a one-handed diving save from Berkey. And one thing that I do want to mention on all this is, yes, Berkey had a ton of saves and something that this game could have been much worse for us. As you guys can see, that is literally the title of the show. But the one thing that he does extremely well is he doesn't just make the save, but it's the parries and where he puts them after he makes those saves. I think it's huge for him to get a fingertip on any of these shots as well, but he pushes them wide a lot of times to either it will be going out for a corner or just directly along the baseline to where our defenders can go pick it up if there is not someone in that dangerous area. So I do want to give a huge shout out on that. And that's something that I feel like you don't really see on the stat lines of, oh, you can see Berkey had a lot of saves, but where does he put those saves? If he cannot hold on to it, where do those go? And you probably heard my voice crack there, and I need water. Then I'll say, now in the 71st minute, this is the AZ shot that I was talking about earlier. You could call it a highlight. You can call it a low light because, honestly, it was a great run by AZ. He's point blank, probably at the 6, I believe, and does a diving header, not even close to going on net. I think it was good for him to be in that spot. However, the cross from Indy was perfect. AZ just has to finish there or at least put it on net and make the keeper make a diving point blank save. Jake has a great point that he put in here for us. He said, this is AZ season in a nutshell. So close, but yet still so far off. And that's what it was. And that's what it's been for him this whole season. And honestly, what the most insane thing to think about this is that would have equalized the game if AZ would have put that away. And this is not a game, we'll talk about the stats here in a little bit as well, but this is not a game that we were even remotely in for the majority of. So that would have been a massive one if AZ could have put that away. The next one, literally a minute later, after they got that, they sent a long goal kick. And the announcer put it best here. He said, another save by Berkey, who is literally single-handedly keeping St. Louis in this game. And that is something that we, not only in this game, but in season as a whole, I know people are upset with the amount of ties that we have. Obviously, we're not creating a lot of wins. We would be so if we did not have Roman Berkey in net. And this guy, I can't get over how well he is still playing, even at his age. And he came over. We paid a lot of money for him, obviously, comparatively speaking to the rest of the team. And this is a guy that it should be paid 7 times more. You could literally give him the salaries of a couple of different guys that I have not been stepping up whatsoever. So obviously that's a big shout out for Rome. And something that I was extremely excited and happy to see was Edu getting back on the pitch in the 74th minute. He subbed in for Sam, which obviously I already said the only highlight we had from Sam was his only shot on goal in the 3rd minute. So I was happy to see Edu get some minutes there as well. And while Edu was in, I don't think I have it called out specifically on this, but those services are something that we've missed from these dead balls, corner kicks. We've had a couple guys like Indy step up and AZ whip a couple of these balls in, but you just can't forget how good that Edu Leuven is at serving the ball. So I'm extremely happy to see him back on the field after struggling with some family news there. So the 76th minute, another one-handed diving save by Roman Berkey, and then icing on the cake in the 80th minute, Cincinnati gets their last goal. Durkin loses sight of Acosta, which I don't know. I don't really understand how you can do that when you think about this guy being the MVP last year. That is the one guy you have to know what's going on. Durkin kind of gets spun around and is jogging back a little bit. And Acosta's give me the ball. I'm wide open and I'm on sides. He gets in behind him. He slots a perfect cross across to Santos, who's on the back post for a touch in. Indy did what he could to try to make a sliding kick and kind of do a clearance there. Nothing really Roman can do in the space where Acosta was. It was too close for him to be able to read that. Otherwise, he would have given up the near post for the goal. So I just really do think that one kind of fell on Durkin of all people. So then the two last highlights I have here in the 89th minute, a cleared corner kick finds Ostrak, who does a great volley. Unfortunately, it's pretty far out. It's about the corner of the 18, and he puts it on net to get our second shot on goal of the night. But it's just too little too late there, because then also in the 90th +2, we have a highlight as well from Klaus, who does a little spin away. And we were talking about this already. Tyler kind of mentioned it earlier. Not really the spot that he needs to be, but he gets so frustrated and he tries to do too much on his own. He's also at the top of the 18, does a spin away and rips a shot. I think that one was honestly pretty close to something that we've seen out of AZ as well, but it's no trouble whatsoever for the goalkeeper. And that was our last and final shot on goal of the game. So we had a total of 3. So that's specifically shots on goal. When you look at the rest of the stats, this thing is completely blue. We look at it when City is red, the other team, whatever their color is. Every stat is highlighted blue except for blocked shots. We had 4 blocked shots. We beat them in that. And that means them blocking it. So not even a great stat to have, but they had 15 total shots with 8 on target to our 10 and 3. Their XG was a flat 3 expected goals. Ours was a .62. So honestly, I think that their XG should have been even higher than that. I think this team could have easily had 4, 5, 6 goals. And I think it's frustrating that it doesn't look great on Berkey from a goal or from a goals against standpoint, but like there's not a lot of things that he can do on these. We were outpossessed. They completed 372 passes to our 296. However, that's not something that we're ever concerned with because I do think that we usually play better when we're not trying to possess the ball. So honestly, from an entire look at the stats line, it did not look good. And then when you look in that, kind of leads us into the player ratings as well. Berkey, man of the match, hands down. Soul Juice, player of the match, heart and soul of the team. I would say with the amount of saves and everything that went along with him, I think Jake has a more specific, and that's literally just said that it could have been a lot worse. But when you look at the stats for Berkey, playing a total of 90 minutes, 5 saves, 3 goals conceded. Yes, we understand. But like I said, there was not a lot that he could do there. I do think that he did very well with his distribution in this game as well. That's something that I think we take for granted on what he can do with his feet, not only acting as a sweeper keeper to where he can kind of take a touch and then make a good pass, but he's also pretty accurate from a long ball standpoint. So I would obviously say that Roman Berkey was the heart and soul of this team. Then when you look at the kind of the back line, I don't really think anyone did that well. When you look at Dewar, Nilsson, Hebert, Watts, and then we can even throw Parker in there for doing the sub on. I would say Parker, I was not a fan of how he played this game, especially on that second goal where he loses sight of the Cincinnati player and just lets him rip one into the top net. When you go into the midfield and you look at it, Celio on the wing, again, I wasn't expecting Celio to even get a start in this game. I thought this was a game that we could probably rest him just because not only the minutes that he gets, but when he's in there, how hard he works. So I don't think that there was a whole lot there for him. Unfortunately, Kojima and Blum, I don't think I even had a highlight for either of them or a low light. So it was one of those things where if Blum has a game like that where it's not a highlight or low light, it's usually because he's just getting the job done, doing the dirty work, making stops, winning tackles. But I just didn't see that out of him last night either. And then I would say Kojima, good for him to get his first start. I do think that he'll be a great player for us, and he's going to be one of those utility guys that we'll see kind of play in a couple different positions, playing right next to Blum in this game. But I think you could also put him out on the wings, and I think he is a little bit more crafty. I think if we're really getting to a bind, you could play him at right back or left back. That's what he was doing when he came from Wake Forest. So I just don't think that this was the game for him coming out at halftime as well. And then AZ, I mean, I think there were a couple of highlights with AZ, but like I said, the finishing ability is just not there. I do think that the craftiness that he has and the quickness and being able to do moves and get by guys to set up other players on our team is all incredible. And I do think there were a couple of highlights of that in this game. But from finishing ability, that is something that I just don't understand how we can't get him to be a guy that's scoring 5 or 6 goals for this team. I would love to see AZ have 10 assists in a season with five goals. I think that would be a perfect AZ stat line, and that's just not something that we're getting out of him so far. So then when you look at the 2 big men up top, Joao Klaus and Sam Adeniran, like I said, Sam's only shot in the 3rd minute, very Sam-esque thing. I really do wish that when he gets by these guys with that pace, all you have to do is look up just quickly, because there is a Klaus that is absolutely making a lung-busting run from the half line when Sam is already in, and he'll never get it there. And I think you can see frustration on Klaus's face from that, and not only on his face, but that's when he starts ripping those shots from different areas to where that is not also that is not Klaus's game. So this is one of those things where it was good to see Sam get back on the field. I do think that we really need to figure out what works best with these guys, because honestly, at Klaus, we've kind of already talked about it. I thought he's been underperforming. He just went and had 2 goals last week. But we need these guys to be able to work together, because if not, we're going to be looking to sign someone. And I think if you're like, we're not looking to get Torgert over from Germany or Royce if we're scoring a ton of goals already. So these 2 guys need to figure it out together. And unfortunately, like I said, we did have a couple subs coming at halftime and later on. I don't think anyone really did overly impressive things there from Ostrak, Durkin, Indy, and it was just good to see Leuven back on the field. I don't think I have really highlights or lowlights except for his ability to whip in corners and free kicks for us. But overall, it was just good to see him back in there. So already talked about it, the heart and soul of the team, obviously Mr. Roman Berkey. I wish, like Jake and I sometimes try to get 2 guys in here separate. This one, there was no one else. There was no one else on the field for us. You can maybe give it to Matt Miazga for getting us our goal, but that would be it. So the heart and soul juice of the game is Mr. Roman Berkey. Go to souljuice.com, get 20% off with the code ballwatching, or you can go to Deerbergs, Chinooks, Straubs. We're looking, try to get them in Costco's in St. Louis, but you got Costco's for anybody else that's listening on the East Coast, West Coast, just getting down into Hawaii and some other states. It's awesome to see what Luis has been doing and being able to get this up off the ground and running and now really expanding. So go to souljuice.com, use code BALLWATCHING to get 20% off, or go to your local grocery stores or Mobile on the Runs in Missouri. And you guys, we talk about it every time. If you have a hard time finding, if you cannot find them at your Deerbergs or at your gas stations or anywhere you shop, let us know. That is something that Luis has been asking us to also relay to him to make sure that he's stocking it correctly, but also that it's visible so that people can find it. So the last thing I will say on this as well, as we kind of talk through everything else, is the predictions and Grahamers. Unfortunately, Jake and I were both hoping for a draw. I think this is one we knew was going to be a tough game, getting everybody rotated in. So we both predicted a 1-1 draw. Obviously, that did not happen. However, if you follow Jake's bet, the highest scoring half being the second half at -110, that did hit. I really did not think that we were going to lose by more than 2. So I had the City +2, but I took the under 3.5 because I did not think that we were going to be scoring a lot of goals. I thought Mr. Roman Berkey could help us keep us in this even more, but some of these are just tough. And so, unfortunately, I led you guys astray on the betting aspect of this, but you can always follow Jake. He always hits some bets. But I'm going to look through the comments right here. I know Tyler's been blowing us up, and I think there's a couple that I would kind of like to get in here as well. One is Soul Juice in Springfield, Missouri. Yes, Tyler, DM us. I'll let you know, and I'll get the correct stores from Luis there as well. And if not, like I said, go to souljuice.com, use code BALLWATCHING for 20% off, get it delivered to your house. And then I will say, here's one that he mentioned as well. He said, I almost feel like AZ could use some Miguel Perez treatment, getting some time, being more consistent on a USL for a period. I would slightly disagree with that because I do think that AZ is getting the minutes with us. I just think that it's something where I don't know I don't know what's off with him. And I really hope it's not like a teaming issue, because I do feel like there's some rifts that occur within this team, obviously with the whole Big Sam stuff. And as you watch it, when last game, AZ, Watts, and Sam obviously did not start when we were back at City Park. But you only see those 3 guys like off and juggling together. Like you don't see the rest of the team all mixed in like everybody else is. So I really do think that if AZ can do a little bit better on a sense of his shooting ability, I think from a creativity sense, he is always there. But that is one thing that I would really like to see him kind of do better for us. And I did want to give a shout out to Nate Kalish. He was pinging me during the game last night. He goes, bro, Sam's first touch makes me want to throw up in my mouth. He's like Happy Gilmore on the Pro-Am with Bob Barker right now. And then he said, I think AZ has the yips in front of goal. And that is something that I hate using that word, because the yips is also, it's something that you think it's like pervasive to where if it's said, then you kind of always think about it. It's more like a jinx, but I agree with him. This is something that we really need to figure out with AZ on this. And I would just really like to get the ball rolling a little bit more, no pun intended. And it's going to be against a team now we're looking ahead, and we're going to go back to City Park, and we are going to welcome the Seattle Sounders. Jake and I will have a preview out for you guys later this week. It's not going to be an easy game for us. And that's the frustrating part. This is, when we looked at the season, we knew that this was going to be a tough stretch. When we go look at the teams that we're having to play, kind of as we're starting to get our legs a little bit heavier as well. So we are just barely above Seattle in the standing. We are currently 9th with 16 points, and they are 10th with 14 points. And we do have a game in hand on them. So they have played one additional game ahead of us. But this is one of those things where we just really need to start finding a way to win games at this point. We always talked about it. I think we talked about it earlier this year already, that at least Mr. Parker, he was the one that brought it up. It's like, yeah, at least we're still getting points when we're getting these ties. But at this point in the season, we're dropping too many points at this. Like the ties were good. It kept us afloat. Now we need to really figure out a way to win these games. And it's going to be against a tough Seattle team. I think that's a team, even if they're just below us in the standings, always a tough team to face. So as we look back on it, this was our 4th game in May, and our 5th one's going to be against Seattle. So a very busy month. Yes, we got a draw from Houston. Yes, an easy dub for Chicago. That's expected. You need to win the games that you are expected to win. But then the 2 tough games that we knew that was coming up with LAFC and Cincinnati, we haven't scored a goal, if you think about it. Take away the Matt Miazga own goal from last night, we've now have 2 straight games where we have not scored, and that would be 3 of our last 4 when you count the Houston game as well. So this is one of those things that I think is a problem that needs to be addressed and needs to be figured out quickly. And I think we can do a couple different things and reach out for people and see what your guys' thoughts are on what this team needs to do. But we've only scored 19 goals in the season. The only other teams that are in the Western Conference that have less goals than us are Seattle with 16, Dallas, who has 13, and Houston with 12. However, they're also keeping the ball out of their net. We are a -1 goal differential, and that is not something that I would ever want to see from this team. That's something that needs to be addressed and figured out, because having a -1 goal differential, I believe if I go back and look at last year, there's only maybe 2 teams that made the playoffs with a negative goal differential. So if we look at that last year, New York and Charlotte had the 8 and 9 spots on the Eastern Conference. And then when you look at us, Kansas City and San Jose had -3 and -4 from last season as well. But they were, again, in the 8 and 9 spots of the playoffs. If you were looking to be in that top 4 or even that top 7 and have that home field advantage in the top 4, or not have to do a play-in game and be in the top 7, you cannot have a negative goal differential. It's just extremely unlikely that you would make the playoffs. And when you look at that, Seattle is the only team last year that had a negative goal differential, and that was in the top 7. They actually snuck in at 5th, but that's because they still were not giving up that many goals in the season. So one thing that it's huge thanks to Roman Berkey for keeping us in these games, but we need to see a little bit more out of our back line. But I don't even think that's our problem right now. It's the scoring capabilities. And I know that we have a lot of these different things that are coming up with Toykert, and Tyler put this in here as well. Can we afford Marco Royce? The answer is yes, we can afford him. And I understand that people are saying, well, he doesn't really fit the mold or our playing style, our team style. I don't care. At this point, we need a proven striker that can actually finish. And even I understand Royce can play on the right or left wings. We need someone that is a true goal scorer. And that's something that we just don't have right now. And I don't think that yes, you can put a price tag on it, but I think that's priceless for this team, because we are really having a hard time with that. So all that to say, everybody, keep your head up. We are going to have a little bit of an easier stretch when we look at. Now we're coming home to a Seattle team that has been struggling as well this season, but this is a time period where we cannot drop any more points. This has to be an absolute dub for us when we're talking about looking at coming back home on a nice Saturday night, because then we have to go to Miami, and that is a very difficult way to go. If you go look at this right now, what Messi and Suarez are doing down there with their goal scoring capabilities, this is going to be a game where we are going to have to score at least 2 goals when we go down to Miami. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but then we have Portland, Dallas, Colorado, Atlanta. Like, we get into a little bit of an easier stretch in June, but this is not a time period where we can still just be giving up this many goals and not winning games that we need to win. And I'm not saying that Cincinnati or LAFC were games that we were expected to win. Definitely not the Cincinnati game, but at some point, we really need to figure out a way to not just win the games we're expected to win, but find a way to get results on some of the tougher games as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know that was a lot in a 28-minute span. Kept it pretty light because, honestly, there wasn't a lot to talk about in this game. However, we will have a lot to talk about later this week when we are bringing in the Seattle Sounders to St. Louis. So for anybody that was in St. Louis, I heard the pitch was rocking again this weekend. Get to the pitch if you have not already. We will be there. I will be there on Saturday. We'll be at the game on Saturday as well. Reach out to us with some of these ideas if anybody has anything. We always love, I feel like we have a lot of comments in here for the live streams, but we love when people reach out to us. If you see us at the pitch or at the game or just DM us, happy to talk about this stuff with you guys anytime. And we like getting everybody involved. So thank you all for joining on this Sunday evening. And I hope you guys all have a great week. All for City.